Good morning and welcome. My name is Tracy Sharp. I'm Program Services Manager for the Office of Public School Construction. You'll hear us refer to ourselves as OPSC throughout our presentation today. With me today to present our agenda items, we have Ryan Yee, Supervisor for the Plan Verification Team in Program Services, and Maria Faust, Project Manager within our OPSC Program Services team, presenting the items. In addition, we also have Michael Watanabe, Deputy Executive Officer for OPSC, and Joshua Potter, Operations Manager in Programs Services. They'll be here facilitating questions that you may have posted in the Q&A, as well as their awesome subject matter experts to help support our presenters with questions you may have. So the first item on our agenda today, I am screen sharing the first page of our meeting report as we get started here. So the first agenda item will be Ryan is presenting to cover a few areas of the school facility program regulations related to supplemental grants for site development activities. Then second, Maria will present some additional proposals on the topic we often call second round modernization. This agenda item has been presented at past meetings, and today we have just a few additional proposed changes to share with you today before we finalize this, hopefully. So with these items, most of them are not big policy shifts. There's things we've seen before that where we see opportunities for improved language or clearer language or clarifications in our regulations. So similar to other meetings, if you are utilizing the online agenda report, we have a bookmark option on the side to help you navigate topics and forward through the actual meeting report to follow along. I'll be using the page number here to jump to specific areas of the meeting report that the presenters are speaking to as we go along. And with that, I think we are ready for our first topic. Ryan.
Thank you, Tracy. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan Yee, and I'm the supervisor of the Plan Verification Team. Today, I'll be talking about the proposed updates to the School Facilities Program regulations. Throughout this meeting, you may hear me refer to the School Facilities Program as SFP. In today's meeting, I'll be proposing updates and changes to SFP regulations 1859.76 for new construction associated with site development costs, followed by SFP regulation 1859.78.7 for modernization of 50-year-old utilities, and lastly, SFP regulation 1859.83 for excessive cost hardship grants. And the reason for these proposed updates is to really put OPSC's current practices into regulations. I invite you all to read through the updates and to let us know if you have any questions. Tracy, if you could please go to page 3 of the PDF. Thank you. First, we're going to look at the proposed changes to SFP regulations 1859.76 for new construction, additional grants for site development. Many of you may be familiar with the site development worksheet, and within this worksheet is a section A7, which is work associated with the permanent erosion control. In this section, districts have typically put work associated with the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, also known as the SWIP, in this section. The reason being it's similar work and sometimes even on the same DSA approved plan page. Our current regulations allow for permanent erosion control, but there's no mention of the SWIP. So in order to be more consistent with current practices, OPSC is proposing to amend subdivision A7 to now include work associated with the SWIP. We have done our research, and this work is required when soil is disturbed during the construction phases, and this is per the Clean Water Act. If you could scroll down to page 4, Tracy. We have included eligible items associated with the SWIP, along with additional links to the Clean Water Act and the links to the federal government EPA's website for additional resources. As we continue to move down to the next page, if you don't mind, there's going to be no changes to section B. And if you could go to page 5 of the PDF, Tracy. Thank you. You will see in section C that we talk about characteristics of a new school on a new site, which also includes a school site where all buildings have been demolished and reconstructed outside the footprint of the original building on the same site. We are also including characteristics of an addition to an existing site, which are sites that currently have buildings where additional buildings are being constructed, along with sites that currently have demolished and replaced an existing building in the same footprint. We're providing these characteristics of these types of projects as eligible work associated with each type of project is a bit different. Again, I want to mention that we are including these characteristics to be consistent with OPSC's current practices and to also match language that's currently on our site development worksheet, along with what is presented in the architect's submittal guideline. Tracy, if you don't mind, could you jump to page 10 of the PDF? Here you will notice the proposed regulation changes to A7. We've stricken current A7 and have updated the regulations to include A7A, which is going to be for permanent erosion control. Notice in A, you will see the same requirements that previously existed, along with the same eligible components, which include but are not limited to plant material, sprinkler systems, jute mesh, and straw, for example. We have then added A7B for the SWIP, which includes but not limited to straw bale barriers, filter barriers, silt barriers, sediment fences, sandbags, and other items required by the local authority. Moving down, we'll see that there's, again, no changes to section B. That remains the same. And then moving down to section C, you've noticed that we have added subdivisions C1 to account for the description of a new school on a new site, which again, this also includes a school site where all buildings have been demolished and then rebuilt outside the original footprint. Following subdivisions C1 is subdivisions C1A through C1E for utility work associated with these types of projects, which ends on page 11 of the PDF. I just want to give a quick example as how our processes really hasn't changed. So, for example, in C1A, you will notice that we continue to provide funding for utility services from the point of connection to the meter. So the eligible work is going to remain the same. As we continue down to page 11, we have included subdivisions C2 to account for the description of projects associated with an addition to an existing site, which again includes a site that currently has buildings where additional buildings are being constructed or demolishes and replaces an existing building in the footprint of the original building. Following subdivision C2 is subdivisions C2A through C2E for utility work with these types of projects. For another example, C2A, we will continue to provide funding for an addition to an existing site, which includes the utility services point of connection to within 5 feet of the proposed nearest building. Again, we just want to put OPSC's current practices into the regulations. The next update we're proposing is to Regulation 1859.78.7, which is associated with the modernization projects with 50-year-old utilities. Tracy, could you jump to page 5 actually of the PDF? For those of you who are familiar with modernization work to 50-year-old utilities, a district must submit the requested work on a 50-year-old utility worksheet. For unit costs associated with this worksheet, OPSC uses the current construction cost remodeling repair book from Sierra West. This is also commonly referred to as the Red Book. Now within the Red Book, you will see there are different unit costs for each F level. F1 is more of the basic entry-level work, F2 is more of your standard to large modernization work, and F3 is going to be more specialty work, which is associated with facility hardship. Historically, OPSC has verified work on the submitted cost estimates and has always allowed the unit cost at the Sierra West F2 level unit cost. We have reviewed the defining characteristics associated with each F level in Sierra West and have also consulted with Sierra West publications to ensure our understandings of each F level in the Red Book. As we continue down to page 6 of the PDF, you will see paragraphs after subdivision C are not numbered. In order to provide clarity, we're proposing to number all paragraphs in subdivision C. Lastly, in this section, again, we want to provide clarity on how we review projects with 50-year-old utilities. Over the course of time, OPSC has seen projects consisted of buildings 50 years or older being modernized, demolished and replaced within the same footprint, and even demolished and replaced within a different location on the same site. OPSC is proposing a new subdivision to provide clarity on how we review all the variations of modernization projects with 50-year-old utilities. Tracy, if you don't mind, could you jump to page 11 of the PDF? Thank you. Here you will notice that there's going to be no changes to section A. And if you could scroll down to page 12, again, there's going to be no changes to section B. That remains the same as well. And as we continue down to section C, what you will see is that there's some cleanup in section C, along with the addition of subsections C2, 1, and 3. These subsections state the requirements of using the F2 unit cost from the Red Book, providing the construction specifications institute number, also known as the CSI number, and if no costs are in the Red Book, backup supporting documentation to substantiate the requested amount will be now required. You will notice as we continue down, you will notice the paragraph after subsection C has also been updated to subsection D, in which that has been updated as well to remove language reflecting that unit cost must come from Sierra West, as this requirement is now stated above in subsection C. Lastly, on page 12, subsection E has been updated to reflect that if qualifying 50 years or older buildings have been demolished and replaced either within the original footprint or within a different location on the site, that funding will be provided in accordance with the lesser of A or B. Now, just as an example, OPSC will still allow funding for domestic water for utility services from the point of connection to 5 feet of the 50-year-old building, whether it's in the same footprint of the original building or on a new location within the same site. As we continue on, the last update OPSC is recommending is to SFP Regulation 1859.83 for excessive hardship grants. Tracy, could you go to the bottom of page 6, please? Now within this section, which continues on to page 7, we are proposing to amend subsection 1859.83E to provide clarity in the requirements. Currently, the district has two options that exist to request a grant for excessive costs due to accessibility and fire code. This amendment we are proposing is again providing clarification and to put OPSC's current practices into regulations. Districts are going to continue to use the DSA access compliance and fire life safety worksheets. We ask that when filling out these worksheets that you keep in mind the following: that the hard construction minimum work verified by DSA must use the F2 unit cost from the Sierra West's Red Book, and please no lump sums if possible. Please also include the CSI reference number. And again, if no items are in Sierra West, districts must submit additional documentation to substantiate their request. Moving down, we have also corrected the number associated with the two-stop elevator and additional stops in the DSA-approved plan sets. Lastly, in another global item, we have been defining updating terms. Starting on this page, you'll see the capitalization of defining terms. Tracy, could you go to PDF page 16, please? 1859.83E has been amended to reflect the addition of 3 subdivisions to E2A, which reflects the requirements when filling out the access compliance and fire life safety worksheets. Again, the new requirements are that the unit cost must be in F2, a CSI number is provided, and if no costs are in the Red Book, a district will have to submit backup documentation to substantiate their request. As we continue down page 16, you will then see section F1 and 2 have been renumbered to account for the two-stop elevator, and 4 is actually stricken, renumbered as G1 and 2 to account for the additional stop on the new elevator. And then lastly, throughout the PDF pages 13 through 16, we are recommending the capitalization of defining terms. And this is the end of our proposed updates to SFP regulations 1859.76, 1859.78.7, and 1859.83. We could check in to see if there's any questions or comments from the audience, and I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Ryan, for walking us through those updates. At this point in time in the Q&A, I am not seeing any questions. And in our chat, thank you, OPSC team, comms team, for adding links to the meeting agenda, such that if you didn't already have it, you've got it now. A quick link. And I see
I think we do have some hands raised.
Yeah, let's see. Sorry, I'm not able to see all presenters. So Josh, if you're a panelist and can see a hand raised,
Absolutely. We
please
did
feel
have
free.
2 hands raised. I see one maybe lowered their hand. So we'll kind of double check, make sure that's not in air. But we do have Kevin Sullivan has his hand raised. See if I can unmute him. Kevin, can you go ahead and speak for us?
Am I coming through?
Yes, we can hear you.
Just FYI, for me, chat is disabled. I can't type in the chat. But what I wanted to ask is, I actually have a suggestion for an edit to what would be new 1859 C1D. I was wondering if that would be something appropriate to talk about here, or if I should submit a written comment.
Oh, we could take it into consideration here. Where was it again? I'm sorry.
So it would be new section 1859.76 C1D for electrical.
C1D for electrical. Let me just scroll up so that we're all looking at the same. C1D, is it this one here?
Yep. So
okay.
There in the first sentence, I would suggest that we replace the word the at building. So to the building switchboard, replace the with the word each. And my rationale for that is for elementary schools, there's usually one switchboard that converts the transformer power to usable sort of 120, 220, or 110, 220 for the buildings. At high schools, though, the switchboard, the first switchboard, usually converts to a sort of a middle ground voltage for distribution around the site. And then each building has a switchboard that converts to final power. I've tried to work with staff over time, over the various high schools and also at middle schools. They've told me, PVT, that they feel constrained by the regs to only run the service from the point of connection to the first switchboard. And I feel that from an outcomes perspective, that advantages elementary schools over, or elementary students over 7 through 12 students, since 7 through 12 students aren't actually getting usable power out of the first switchboard. So.
Okay, we'll take that into consideration. Thank you very much for that suggestion, Ken.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other hands at this time. Still, again, feel free to use the raise hand feature if you would like to ask us a question verbally. We do have the Q&A function available. Please ensure we are using the Q&A option. As mentioned by Kevin making the comment, the chat is not functional in the webinar format for the panelist questions. Please use the Q&A function for that.
Thank you for that, Josh. I appreciate it. And we're not seeing any other hands raised and no open questions in our Q&A. So I can certainly queue up our screen share to the second round mod for Maria. Let's see, Maria, can you remind me which page you'd like to start from, and I'll queue it up.
Page 18.
Page 18, all right. Okay, so seeing no further hands or questions in the Q&A, I'm going to turn the floor over to Maria for the second item on our agenda. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for taking the time to attend this meeting. I will be continuing the conversation regarding subsequent apportionments, or as it's been mentioned before, second round modernization. This topic was previously discussed on July 10th, 2025. And if anyone has not viewed that stakeholder meeting or agenda item, you can do so by navigating to the OPSC website. All prior stakeholder meetings will be under the Meetings tab, or you can also click the links within this document. Any stakeholder feedback that was submitted as a result of the July 10th meeting will be discussed in this item, as well as a few clarifying topics that were included as a result of these continued discussions. We will pause a few times throughout this presentation for questions, and you can either use the raise hand feature like mentioned, or you can place the question in the Q&A. Before reviewing the topics that we would like to provide additional guidance on, we will look at a few stakeholder questions that have been submitted in response to the prior meeting. We will start on page 19. Question number 1 requests examples of the calculations that will determine the additional rounds of modernization funding. As stated in the answer, we will address this question shortly, but I would like to mention that a more detailed walkthrough of the determination of eligibility for a subsequent apportionment, as well as additional examples, will be provided in webinar format in the future. So we definitely invite anyone interested in seeking more information on the topic to attend. Question number 2 on page 20 addresses OPSC's current practice of determining building classification during modernization establishment. And the stakeholder proposes that a portable building's original designation be maintained, regardless of any superficial improvements, and not be classified as a permanent building. OPSC maintains that a portable building needs to meet the Education Code definition of a portable, which dictates that the building must be constructed to be relocatable and transportable without the separation of the roof or floor from the building, and must not exceed 2,000 square feet. In many cases, portable buildings have been modified to the extent that they are not able to be relocated without damage to the building or potential surrounding buildings due to structural modifications. And this causes the building to no longer meet that definition as stated in Education Code. As modernization establishment views buildings at a point in time, if significant modifications were made prior to the establishment of the site, then the building would be classified as permanent rather than portable to be moved as Education Code dictates. We will now look at the items that need further clarifications, adjustments to the modernization baseline eligibility on page 22. The following section provides an example of the calculation that is used to determine the eligibility that will be available due to the subsequent apportionment. In this example, the district received a modernization funding apportionment on March 28th, 2001, and requested 200 K-6 pupil grants in the application. When determining what eligible for a subsequent apportionment, a district would review the eligibility determination form SAB 5003 that immediately preceded the funding. In this example, there were 4 eligible classrooms that were portable and 4 eligible permanent classrooms for a total of 8 eligible classrooms. To determine the available grants, the ratio of permanent to portable classrooms is used, which in this case would be 50%. As you can see on the chart, the ratio is used for the portable grants funded on March 28th, 2001, and half of the grants apply to each building type that was eligible. So 100 K-6 pupil grants available to use on permanent or portable facilities, and 100 K6 pupil grants available for use on portable classrooms. As mentioned in the previous stakeholder meetings, when these grants are returned to the baseline, the district must use the grants according to regulatory guidance. Permanent pupil grants are available for use on any eligible modernization project, while portable classroom pupil grants must either be used to replace the portable classroom with another classroom or be modernized as a better use of public resources. As you can see in the return of grants chart, subsequent funding will be available for use when the facilities have reached either 20 or 25 years past the original apportionment date of March 28th, 2001, which you can see as an A adjustment type on the baseline. As mentioned in prior meetings, the I adjustment type will be designated for the return of grants. I1 is the return of portable grants, and I2 is the return of permanent grants. And as you can see, there is the corresponding date that they are made available in the SAB date column. For example, the permanent grants became eligible for return on March 28th, 2026, and the district could utilize them in any eligible funding application that was submitted on or after that March 28th date. The next example deals with prorate funding requests based on eligible project scope. Using the prior example, the district is now seeking to use the pupil grants returned for a project that is submitted on April 1st, 2027. This project scope entails modernization work on permanent facilities and the like-kind replacement of two of the 4 original portable classrooms. The remaining 2 portable classrooms were not replaced within the project scope or modernized as a better use, and therefore they will not be a part of the funding request. All of the pupil grants have still been returned to the baseline as seen in the first example, but the district may only use a portion of the pupil grants generated by the 4 portable classrooms, as only 2 are included in the current project scope. Therefore, a proration would be applied to the total pupil grants the district could use by taking the 2 being used in the current project with the 2 not included, and this represents a 50% ratio. So the grant return for all 4 portables was 100 pupil grants, and the district would then have access to 50 pupil grants in this project. Because the permanent grants are available and can be used on any eligible modernization project, the district would then have a total of 150 pupil grants to use in this funding application. The 50 pupil grants that are left for the 2 portables not used, sorry, one second. Not used in the project will remain available until the district requests funding for an approved scope of work on those remaining 2 portables. We're going to pause here for a moment in case there are any questions on the grant return calculation or on prorated funding requests.
Thank you, Maria. I'm not seeing any hands raised and nothing in the Q&A at this time.
Okay, now we will move on to page 23. A section for a special day class breakout was included to address the instances where a district received funding prior to the site's SDC breakout. As mentioned in previous stakeholder items on this topic, a district must break out their SDC pupils and classrooms, if applicable, so that the grants are properly apportioned to each grade level. In keeping with OPSC policy, if there has been funding prior to an SDC breakout, the district will need to retain the option that was chosen on the Form SAB 5003 that immediately preceded the funding. For example, if a district chose option A, they must stay with option A on the SDC breakout 5003. They would not be able to change to option B. The next section details the subsequent apportionment for public schools on military installations, or PSMI, that received a previous apportionment. Education Code Section 17073.15b and SFP Regulation Section 1859.60 indicate that a subsequent apportionment for sites located on a military installation receive a subsequent apportionment every 10 years from the previous apportionment date. Along with this, Education Code Section 17073.15b2 also requires that a portable facility that was eligible to be replaced with, be replaced with a permanent facility. This differs from non-PSMI sites because portables on a non-PSMI site may be replaced with portable or permanent facilities. Excuse me. Because of this difference, OPSC is proposing an additional I-4 adjustment type to specify the difference between regular school sites and PSMI school sites' subsequent apportionment guidelines. Are there any questions on the SCC breakout or PSMI guidelines?
I am not seeing any at this time. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We will take a look at a few minor changes to the proposed regulations that have been included since the last stakeholder meeting on this topic. We're going to go ahead and take a look at attachment B1B on page 29. Okay. So section 1859.2 was amended to remove the education code reference for subsection J regarding portable classrooms to ensure that any changes to education code subsections in the future will not require further changes to SFP regulations. For example, the education code subsection for the definition of a portable is currently under subsection M and no longer J. So we're removing that issue for future purposes. The next amendment is under regulation section 1859.31 for gross classroom inventory. Clarifying language was included in the bottom portion of the section to put emphasis on how the classification of a portable facility will be determined during new construction or modernization establishment. I'd like to point out the determined on the date that OPSC accepts a valid Form SAB 5002 or Form SAB 5003. We will move down to page 30 to view the next amendment. As previously mentioned, the adjustment type I-4 has been included in regulation section 1859.61 to allow for the increase on the baseline for a subsequent apportionment for military installations. And lastly, an amendment was made to section 1859.78.8b on page 31. This was to add reference to statute to better explain the parameters for portable classrooms being modernized as a better use of public resources. That'll include any additions and amendments to this topic since the last stakeholder meeting. I'd like to thank everyone for your time and continued consideration as we finalize the implementation and processing guidelines for a subsequent apportionment. I will now hand it back over to Tracy for any questions. I do want to mention that we provide an email at the end of the item for our OPSC communications team in the instance that a question or comment was not answered during this meeting. We just ask that any submissions be sent to us by close of business on Friday, August 14th. Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that, Maria. Much appreciated. At this time, are there any questions?
Definitely. Thank you, Maria and Ryan, and also Tracy. Not seeing any hand raised or questions in the Q&A. Again, as Maria kind of mentioned at the end there, we have discussed the additional apportionment or second round modernization a couple of times. This is intended to kind of just, again, surface to level touch those new minor tweaks that we've done since the last time we saw each other on this topic. Our intention is to obtain any feedback, any questions, comments that any of you would like to submit to us on these topics. And for the second round modernization specifically, the intent would be to prepare a board item after this, pending any feedback. So again, thank you all very much. Still not seeing questions. We'll be here for a minute. Please feel free to raise your hand, drop anything in Q&A.
Yeah. And again, we'd appreciate your written response by Friday, August 14th to the OPSC comms team. All right, at this point, seeing none, I think we can close this meeting. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We do very much appreciate your time and the feedback you've been providing regularly over the last, it's been almost 2 years now, going through our regular process. We'll have some other topics in the near future, following up on programs that are still in process. Specifically, the proposed FIT updates will be coming up at a future stakeholder meeting, and also continued implementation proposals for the lead in water remediation program. So you can watch our agenda announcements for those topics to be coming to a meeting near you very soon. All right. Stay cool out there. It's getting hot this weekend, and thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.